Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Teams with Tuesday event here with eGroup. So this morning, we're going to go through a quick intro like we do every week. If you joined us here before, we're going to talk a little bit of what's new, what's actually been released. These are not roadmap items, but actually what should be available in your Teams client now today that have recently come out. We'll go into the questions and answers. And really today I have more demo than the Q&A slides that I normally present, and then we'll just close up with how to reach out to us and how to contact us. So Teams for Tuesdays, we do, of course, on Tuesdays. We schedule them between 11 and 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And we have moved to bi-weekly now. So we did one 2 weeks ago. Now we have one today here on the 13th. So the next one will actually be on October 27th, which is 2 weeks from now. Because this is a live event, not like a normal Teams collaboration event, anyone that joins, you don't have the audio and the video capabilities for feedback, but you do have a Q&A chat box. Please feel free to drop any questions in there. I won't be able to answer them live while we're in the meeting. However, once we get to the close, we'll review the questions that have been posted and I'll answer them there. If you don't stay till the end and you still have a question, please be sure to include your contact info and we will follow up. All right. Good deal. So eGroup, been around for a while now. We're pretty strong Microsoft partner there. We work on two of their clouds, two of their three major clouds, and that's the Microsoft productivity side. That's where Teams falls into, along with SharePoint Exchange and essentially all of those user productivity tools and collaboration tools. But we also do a lot with the cloud platform, which is Microsoft Azure. So especially those hybrid data centers and those moves like that. And integrating those with this existing services too. So, if you have needs for like hardware services and things like that, we do all of that as well. It's not just the Teams things that we're here today for. I've been with eGroup now for 8 years. I'm their director of the cloud managed services. I do have a pretty broad technical background, especially in the Microsoft ecosystem, both on premises and in the cloud, as well as a bit of a security background. So what's been dropped this week? So there were two new items that came in. One I find is not utilized very much, and that's the meeting notes. That's exactly what it sounds like when you schedule a meeting in Teams. There actually is a section in there where you can have notes and where those notes stay with the teams. So previously this was somewhat limited, but now they've upped it so up to 100 people can actually get in and interact with those notes. The other one is spotlighting individual speakers in a Teams meeting. So when you're on, if some of you may have seen that you can actually pin someone, right? So if you have a normal meeting, you have kind of the 3x3 matrix, you can select somebody and pin them, but that would only be for your view. So pinning is a bit of an admin view that pushes that out. So here's where the meeting notes are. If you're in Teams, go to your calendar. You can open up that calendar invite, and then you will see, as I've gotten this screenshot, that there is a line in there for your meeting notes. So if you're not aware of this in here, when you have these meetings, you can go to chat before a meeting starts as well as after, so that you can actually interact there for the meeting prep. And you can also go in and add these meeting notes. And these meeting notes are available before, during, and after your meeting as well. So that's where this will actually be found. Now, an important thing to note here is this is only on those scheduled calendar meetings. So if you have a meeting that's like a recurring meeting that you've put in a channel, this is not going to be there. So the other thing is if your meeting does include more than 100 participants, this meeting notes actually won't be there either. So for the vast majority of meetings you probably have with a handful of folks, departmental meetings, this should be there, should be available to you, and you should be able to take advantage of it. And remember, it's a running note board, so those reoccurring events that you have on the calendar and things like that, you'll be able to go back to them. The other one, the spotlight ones. This one is fairly new, but again, it's like pinning, except for in just being an individual highlight of a person or a sharing content that I'm going to keep on my screen. As an organizer or a presenter, I can go into my participants list, right click a participant and say spotlight, right? So if I do that and I'm the presenter, it's going to put me front and center on everyone's screens. If I do it with someone else, it's going to put them front and center on anyone's screen. So another kind of a thing to be aware of on this is there's some new views that have rolled out, right? There's the large gallery view, and there's also the what do they call that new view? The stadium view, right, that are out there. If you're using those views, the spotlighting doesn't work. This only currently works in like the 3x3 type of normal default views in Microsoft Teams. So can be handy. Just know it's out there. It's not something that's going to be front and center. And again, those actually just dropped a couple of weeks ago. Okay, so why are we here today? How do I do more with Teams? Now, we're talking about kind of extending and customizing Teams today. And I'm going to focus on 3 ways that anybody can really do this, right? So we're not talking about breaking open, a code editor, so to speak, and building custom deployment apps and things like that, though that can be done. There's a framework for it. We're going to look at kind of the low-code solutions, the easy way to do this that just about anybody can do. Some are, the ramp-up's incredibly easy, to others that might take a little bit of time to make it do what you want. So we're gonna look over. We're gonna see the existing apps that you can use today, right? This includes Microsoft and third-party apps. We're gonna look at the Microsoft Automate, which lets you kind of do workflows, but it also lets you collect data and information and interact with other apps, and how we can create apps with Power Apps. Because there's actually 2 things here. If you're familiar with Power Apps, there's actually a new preview release for working with Power Apps inside of Microsoft Teams, and we'll take a quick look at that as well. Okay, so for this, I am not going to rely on screenshots. We are going to drop into Microsoft Teams. Oops, bring you back. Okay, so here we have a default team. So when you create a team, you have a channel. This essentially is what you get. You get posts, you can interact with that, right? This is kind of the persistent chat. We get files, which ties that back to a library where all the normal files, documents, and things that you want to share with that can be stored. And then you get a wiki, and the wiki is somewhat like OneNote. It's not as functional. It's basically got some text, and we can add some different sections in here. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the wiki. I prefer kind of to replace the wiki and to use OneNote in this case. And if you're not familiar with OneNote, it's more capable. It can basically hold things like attachments and files and links and all kinds of things. So in that case, you'll notice we have the plus in here. So every team here we can extend out with what are called tabs. When we add a tab, we're going, depending on what we've allowed inside here, the administrators have allowed, we're going to have access to different apps. A lot of these are Microsoft apps. So when we look at Word, Excel, and those traditional things, we can pin them in here as a tab. And instead of going into a library, finding wood, opening it in Word, when we pin it, it actually just opens right to that document. So it can be extremely helpful, especially if you've got a small work group or project or something like that you want to highlight. One of the other ones we noted here was OneNote. So if I want to attach my OneNote here, I could go in and add it, and I'm going to get a one page with my OneNote in it. So you'll see PowerPoint as well, and I'm going to show you some examples that are already done. And there's a few that may not stand out to you if you're not aware of them. Right, so one is Planner. Planner is a task management app. It's a little bit between a full project management app and then like a really slimmed down to-do type app, right? And we have other apps for that, to-do with Microsoft being one of them, but as well as this lists app that we can use. So lists and Planner we'll take a look at. They can work a little bit differently, but if I'm planning things, if I want to assign them and track them, I might use Planner. If I just want to collect, say, incidents, I might use lists here. Power Apps, that was on my slide there. We're going to look at that as well as some of the automate things. And again, if I want to drop a form and interact with people, this is how I can extend Teams very easily with what's already here. And when I scroll down, you notice there are third parties here as well. So if I'm using something like Trello or another product, if they already have an integration here, I can click on it, right? Like we have Asana. If we were using Asana and for tagging tasks and things like that, we could add that all together here. If something's not available in this list, okay, or if it requires like a separate subscription, it's not available, say on the free tier that you're utilizing with your app, you may be able to bring it in as essentially think of it as a window into the website. That's where this website entry comes in. If you use this, you can just post any website there. Do know if it has authentication and things like that, it's going to prompt you in there, but it does allow anything with a web interface to also be added as a team. So for example, if I run a project, for instance, I might create a team for my project. I'm going to have my my channel there for my main project, and I might have a separate system with customer info in it, right? It's going to be my CRM or my other ERP or something like that, and I don't have a plugin for it. And if it has a web interface, I can add that in here, maybe take it to the customer page so it's directly right there. Then I could add Planner in so that we can manage the tasks from that. And then I might add lists to collect issues on that project as I go. And so it gets very, very capable very fast without doing anything, without opening up any kind of code or anything like that. So to show you some of these in actions, let's take a look at some monthly reports. You're going to know this one has a sales report here. I'm going to jump around a couple of channels because there's a couple of things going here. This is a Power BI app. If you're licensed for Power BI and you have it plugged into your data that you want to share, you can come in and you can publish it here, and then everybody can see the dashboard. It's simple as that. And if we go back to one of these guys I had on here. Oh, here we go. If we look at here, this product roadmap, this is going to be a PowerPoint file. So this is Excel data. This other one might be the PowerPoint, but you can see this is Excel embedded in here. We can interact directly in Excel. I didn't have to open that. And then same thing with PowerPoint. So it's all here, all collected, all directly accessible from in Teams, right? Okay. Now, that's the easy part because those are already there, right? So now let's say we want to do something that's not actually included in Teams. We want to integrate it with something, for instance. So one big thing that I've had people request, I'm going to find a good post here with the message, is when you're working in email, you can you can favorite an email, you can send it to your tasks, to your to-do, but we really don't have that out of the box with Teams. Not yet anyway. It technically is on the roadmap, so it will be released. But if we wanted to integrate something like that, we could rely on Microsoft Automate to do that. So here, I'll show you, I've got to-do up already. So I've already got this task list. There's nothing on this task list, but let's say I wanted to create a task from this message. So from here, I can click on this. You'll see I've got more actions, and you'll notice there are some things here. Like I've already got some interactions. Like I could create a poll from a Microsoft form. Other apps that you integrate into your Teams and that you allow in here and you approve will add some things in here. And let's go back into that. I'm going to say see more, and I have this right here, this create a task to do. I actually created this task, and I'm going to click it. So this is going to pop up in this window here. We can actually customize. I'm going to show you all of this, and I'm just going to call this is my test item. Let's go ahead and add a few dates in here. We're going to say hi. And these are my notes. All right, so I'm going to submit that. Now that's going to take a minute and it's going to process. Now I'm going to skip the to-do. We're going to come back to that to a second, but I'm going to go over to the flow. I'm going to refresh. So this is actually already running. It's going to show me that it ran. Here I do have a success, and if I go over to my to-do, I should see that here. I might have to refresh. Oh, it's making a liar out of me. Oh, there it is. Test item added. So it just took a minute to get through the flow. And if I open it up, you'll notice down here I have the message body. This is from the message, and these are my notes. So this is not available out of the box. I actually created a flow for that. And you'll notice up here, it's a different app, but if we go to the launcher over here, you'll be able to find it here, Power Automate here. If you don't see it here, go ahead and click on all apps or click on Office 365 here, and then you should be able to find that, and it's going to open it up. Now, I'm going to edit flow so I can show you what's going on here. It's very simple. We've got two items. The first one that we have here is a trigger. So this is what starts the flow. And what we've done is we've selected, for a selected message, we are going to run this flow here. There's not much going on here except for edit adaptive card. That's that pop-up we saw, right? And you'll notice this is the form here. So we can customize that form right here in the designer. If you don't have this, this was an update. I know it's not available necessarily to everyone because I've seen some people where it wasn't seeing that. We can actually import it. You might see what's called a JSON designer. What you would do then is you would actually use this designer page over here. This is easy to find if you actually just search for adaptive cards Adaptive Cards Editor in Google or Bing, it will come up. You can also see it's adaptivecards.io. This is the Microsoft site. This is the sample adaptive card up here, and this is actually down here what makes it up. So this is what's called the JSON format, the text that makes it up. So if you had to paste it in here, you would just come in here, copy this out, and then paste it over. But you can move. You'll notice these right here are the same that I'm showing in my Teams designer. You can use these to kind of move these over and add into the designer. So you don't have to create that in these text fields. So that's important to note. It's still very much drag and drop as far as that goes. All right, okay. So now we have the card in here. This is going to be that form that we just looked at. When you click on it, you'll notice we've got some things over here that are properties of the card. So these are actually what's going to feed our next step. And that's the most important thing here is this ID, because this is for all of these controls, you need to fill out this ID because that's what's going to flow down to our next step. So that pretty straightforward, but the next thing we want to do something with the data. We've captured that data. Now we got to do something. In this case, we're going to add it to do. This could be also sending an email or anything else in the Microsoft ecosystem, right? You'll notice where I had that ID, right? That's where these are. These are the names I've given it. This to-do task is actually pre-populated with these. I don't create subject, due date, all this stuff. All I do is tell it how to fill that in. So in this case, I brought that in, and you'll notice I have these pre-selected items I can select out of here. And these are going to be in there as well. See, as I get down towards the bottom, these are my properties that I'm filling in, and I'm dropping them over here. So once I've done that, that's what's going to run through and fill it in and fill in this item and this to do, and it's going to use the APIs behind the scenes. Now, the other thing I'm doing is I'm adding some information under my notes in my body. So if you remember before in that to do, I had that down here. I had the message body in my notes. It's actually what's happening down here. I can format it with a little bit of HTML, and I can drag and drop these items into the text, and it's going to fill that in. Down here, this is the very specific list that I want. You'll notice this is assigned to tasks. And here, I do have 2 task lists, which correlate to these 2 right here that I can select from. Now, you can make this dynamic as well if you need to catch it, and maybe you want to create in the form up here which list it's going to be, then you could actually have that tied down here. So that's it. It's just those 2 things. Now, just so you get an idea of what's in here, if we were to click on the plus here and to do something else, you'll notice I can do a parallel branch here. So I could actually have it maybe send an email at the same time, post to Teams, send an SMS message, for instance. We could do all of that. But if I'm clicking here, you can get an idea of what's in here already. And you'll see a couple of things to note that are important. You'll have all the built-in, standard, and premium. What's important to note is standard for all of you that have an Office 365 license. Standard is going to cover that. It's going to cover basically all of your integrations in the Microsoft products. If you want to do something Exchange, add something to SharePoint or whatever, that will be in here. It's what's inside of your Microsoft subscription. If it goes outside of that, if you want to talk to a third-party app, for instance, or if you want to access the Microsoft Graph API or a SQL database, that requires a different type of license. So very important to consider that, because that's not included in the plans for Office 365 or the Microsoft 365. Now, if you have Dynamics included, some of the higher end Dynamics licenses actually do include some licensing, especially for Power Apps, that will allow you to do that. So it's just important to consider that when you're deploying these. So there's a lot in here. When you get in here, I encourage you, if you haven't been in here, just come in here and check it out, and start over with templates. And I'm going to leave you guys with this screen on here, but you'll see there's already some predefined templates on things that are happening. And there are a lot in here. So you can search on, let's say we want to look for things for Outlook. That will trim it down. And these are all the activities that have Outlook in there, right? Get a push notification. If you have the app on your phone, you can get an email and you can have it pushed to your phone alert, for instance. So there's a lot you can do here. Can get complex, but also going to be simple and just solve really simple problems. So very powerful tool. Anybody can get in and use it. So I encourage you, if you have not yet, to go in, check it out, and see what you can do with that. Okay, so the other item here we want to talk about outside of Automate is its complement, which is Power Apps. So Power Apps can also do some orchestration workflow things, but it's really meant to be thought of as an app. So you're going to custom define, create the UI. You're going to have it do stuff with your data, store it, and so forth. So here I've already got one very, very simple app that's already embedded in Teams. And you'll notice all this is doing is letting me create a form. If I want to add a new record, it's going to add it here. I have no validation or anything happening on the form, but the record was added. Now you'll see I've got 2 records. This can get more complicated. You can rearrange these forms, and you can do other things with it. Now, this particular form starts out with the app that's embedded in Teams. So there are 2 different ways to create Power Apps today. There's the Power app itself, which can be used outside of Teams. So you can actually use this to customize SharePoint forms. You can bring it up on your phone with the app and you can interact with it that way, as well as use the designer that's inside of the Power Apps app itself. Now, there's another release of Power Apps. It's basically the same thing, but it's embedded directly into Teams. And the difference here, though, is it's not going to connect to all the same things that you have, and it's going to give you a built-in database. Now, this is currently in preview, but you can do it right in Teams, and I'll show you where that is here. So if we go in here and add apps, what you're going to want to do is find your Power Apps, which is this. We're going to go into that. And here you'll notice we have some templates to get started. There's some instructional material as well. But if we want to, let's say, click on this template here, let's add that. We're going to add this to a team. We could start from scratch. That other one I did was from scratch. And we'll say Sales and Marketing General, Setup tab. All right, it takes just a moment. It's going to set up. Oh, it looks like this is going to take longer than expected. This went pretty quickly when I did this right before this meeting, but we'll come back and check on it. While we're waiting for this guy, I do want to show you the other one we have here. So because if we go in to all apps, let's find Power Apps. We're going to go into the main admin site. And it looks very much like Flow did, or Automate, sorry. And we do have flows that can be part of our workflows as well. And if we look, there are also very similar formats here from Teams, but this is very specific to the portal here. I will point out there's 2 kind of apps. For Office 365 users, you're mostly going to be here on this Canvas side. If you're Dynamics, you can use the model-driven apps. That's essentially you take a database and it will create that app with the forms and everything that you need already off that. Office 365 users aren't going to have access to that. You would need a separate license for that. Those are driven off what's called the Common Data Service, which you'll see as a connection here. And this has some of the same restrictions that I talked about before. Inside of Microsoft 365, if we want to interact like a SharePoint list, send emails and those type of things, that's fine. If we want to talk to SQL, if we want to go out to like the Common Data Service or anything like that, or an external app, there's a separate license that is required from that standpoint. So let's jump right back over. He's still going, but I'm going to go ahead and come up. Let's go into our other app. I want to show you one thing here. When I click this item, this will open up the Power Apps screen as well. This is kind of to make my point on where this can run. So I get this error here. You saw it briefly come up. It still exists within the Power Apps space, but this will not run outside of Microsoft Teams, right? So when we create it inside Teams, it's basically in there within that boundary. It's not going to run on the external app or anything else. That's only going to be available inside of Teams. So let's go ahead. Oh, I'm in the web face. I don't have my edit button here. Okay, coming up. So this comes up because it needs access from my account to access these applications. It's basically going to look at user IDs here. This is going to interact with Microsoft Teams. So we do have to allow it. Every user that comes in would actually have to allow this the first time. And okay, we're going to leave it on that channel. So you'll see this form here is a little more complex from what I had, right? They have some sections added. They have other form fields in here that you can utilize, and shows kind of what you can do within here. And now notice I don't have any extra Chrome or anything like I would have up here, file menu, all that, those type of things that you might see if I'm adding an app from the browser. And the reason is because this is set up to work with Teams, and the UI is what you actually build in the form. And to give you an idea of that, I'm going to go back to Power Apps really quick. We're going to start with a blank one. Well, it's actually taking me a while. All right. Well, we may not get to showing the designer in that part, but if I click back over here, let's create a blank canvas. This would look the same inside of Teams, by the way. It does not let you change your format between like tablet and phone. That's what we do here because this is in the apps. But internally, it's going to give us the same canvas. So just want to take a quick look at that. And we're going to skip. Okay. Okay. So this would actually be the edit view in Teams as well. It's going to be the same. Nothing is on here, but notice if we go out, we can add things in here like text labels, and we can drag and drop, and we can put things in to this form here. So there's a lot that goes into this. It is drag and drop. You can collect any data you want, but you do have to consider the source of where you're going to collect it. If you're inside of Teams, you're going to use the Teams database that's in there. And note that this is still preview, but it is the easiest way to go about this. And if you're doing it from the designer, especially if you're in the Office 365 side of things, you're probably going to use one of two things. You're either going to tie this into a SharePoint list, right, that's going to store your data, or you're going to use an Excel file that's stored in OneDrive. And that's very important that it has to be stored there, like in OneDrive or SharePoint, for that to work. There other data sources do exist, but usually that's going to require a different type of license. You're either part of Dynamics, or you're going to have what's called like the per user, like the per app plan that give you additional capabilities here. But again, drag and drop. This one's a little more difficult to get into than Automate, but it's pretty powerful and you can do a lot with it. So dropping back out, let's go back into our Teams. I also want to actually show one more that we had in here. Oh, issue tracker, there we go. So this one here, when we talked before, we talked about kind of the planner and the issue tracker. So this would be the lists items that we saw when we added in there. And when we create the list, it gives you a few templates you can do. You can start from scratch, but essentially, if you're aware with SharePoint lists behind the scenes, but it's got some pre-formatted deals here for working with teams. So in this case, this was actually just the issue task off that. So not a lot going on here. If you see in here, we can see the details. And it's a little simpler than a Power Apps would be, but if all you need to do is collect simple information and track it, and you want to have some colored status things, look at the List app. The other one is if we look at Planner. If you're not familiar with Planner, it will have your tasks like this. You can basically customize any of these columns here to track projects, as well as status items here, because if we click something is done here, that will go to completed. These can be assigned to people. You can include checklist items in here as well as attachments, and you can assign due dates and things like that. If you look over here, we've got two other views, charts, kind of out of the box. Don't have to do anything to get this charts. And then the schedule view is the calendar. One thing to please bear in mind is this is not meant to be a full project management thing. So you're not going to get things like resource leveling. You're not going to get roll-ups between projects. And some of those more advanced features, at least not without some customizations, like integrating some of these things I just showed you around Planner and Flow, for instance, or maybe a little bit of Power BI. It's entirely possible to do those things, but it does take a little bit of work to do so. Okay. So that was a lot, and all of those things, like I said, can extend teams, and you can customize it to do what you want to do with it. Lots of flexibility in there. The learning curve is probably low to moderate. It doesn't get too difficult. On the Power App side, if you want to create standalone Power Apps that actually work in teams on the app, and outside of that, that can be a little more difficult. Learning curve ramps up a little bit there, but it's all doable. If you've done Excel and done Excel functions, you can get into these tools and find your way around. So if you're interested in learning more, if you've got projects that you're trying to get into and you actually want to leverage any of these tools, please be sure to reach out. Call us, email us. If you are already in contact with some of our field reps or engineers out there, let them know. Happy to jump on a call, see what you're trying to do, see where we can help or point you in the right direction. We've been doing this one for a while. We used to do a lot more with the SharePoint workflows, if you're familiar with that, and Nintex, and so some of those things. And we've been able to do a lot of those same things, and in some cases that are a little bit more powerful from these built-in tools. So, all right, that's it, folks. I'm going to wrap it up here. I know I'm a couple of minutes past, and let's check. I don't have any outstanding questions, so feel free to reach out. Let us know what we can do for you, or if there's something else you want to hear or go into, we'll be happy to tackle that on one of these Teams Tuesdays. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate everyone for joining. Thank you.